Welcome to online classes on Evidence Act. Today we will discuss the provisions of Section 11, 12, 30 and 14 of the Indian Evidence Act. What is Section 11? It is also a relevancy of facts. It is a section within the chapter relevancy of facts. So Section 11 that provides what it says, what it provides. Facts not otherwise relevant becomes relevant. Facts not otherwise relevant means that fact has no connection with the fact and issue or relevant facts, but that becomes relevance. What it says? What it says? Facts not otherwise relevant are relevant in two cases. If they are inconsistent with any fact and issue or relevant fact. 2. If by themselves or in connection with other facts, they make the existence or non-existence of any fact and issue or relevant fact highly probable or improbable. Am I audible? Facts not otherwise relevant. Facts not otherwise relevant means a particular fact which is not relevant to the fact and issue or relevant fact, but it becomes relevant when that is inconsistent with the fact and issue or relevant facts, or if by those facts themselves or in connection with the other facts they make the existence or non-existence of the fact and issue or relevant facts highly probable or improbable. For an example, X is facing trial for committing murder of Y at Cuttack. On that day, X was at Calcutta. So, the presence of X at Calcutta is not the issue or fact and issue in the case, in the trial. The trial is whether he has committed murder of Y. But if evidence is given to prove that X was present on that day or at that relevant time at Calcutta, that becomes relevant because that fact is inconsistent with the fact and issue. If X was present at Calcutta on that day at the particular time, at the alleged time, so that is inconsistent. So he cannot commit murder here in Cuttack. So that's why that becomes relevant. So facts not otherwise relevant. That fact is not relevant to the fact and issue or relevant fact, but that becomes relevant as it is inconsistent with the fact and issue. If that fact is accepted, if believed, that is totally inconsistent with the fact and issue. That means that the fact and issue that fact goes against the fact and issue. Inconsistent, not consistent. Similarly, if by themselves or in connection with other facts, make the existence or non-existence of the fact and issue or relevant fact highly probable or improbable. In these categories, this clause 1, facts which are otherwise relevant are relevant if they are inconsistent with fact and issue. In this context, you should remember there are five common cases of inconsistency of facts are found. There are 5 instances when such facts may be treated as inconsistent with fact and issue. First is alibi. Alibi this is a Latin term. The meaning is, alibi means presence elsewhere. Alibi, that is inconsistent with fact and issue. That's a common instances. Such a plea is taken in criminal cases. So alibi, if direct evidence is available, if reliable evidence, if the evidence is independent evidence is available to prove that the accused was present at a distant place, at a particular time, at the alleged time, and the commission of the alleged crime was not at all possible on the part of was not possible on the part of the accused because he was present at a distant place. Then in such case, that will make then the accused will get an acquittal. So here, this presence of alibi. Alibi means it is a Latin term that is presence elsewhere. Most of the cases, sometimes some accused person, they take the plea of alibi. So when they take the plea of alibi, the burden is on the accused to prove that he was present elsewhere, so that it was not the commission of an offence by that accused was totally impossible. So how that is proved? That can be proved only by independent evidence. Sometimes independent evidence is also not available, but the evidence must be reliable. This law in this regard has been settled by the Privy Council in Bhupani Sahu versus the King in AR 1949 PC Privy Council. What it says? Alibi evidence through disinterested and impartial witness has a greater evidentiary value. So here, that alibi is a evidence may be given to prove alibi that the accused was present elsewhere, so that it was impossible for him to commit the crime because that fact is inconsistent with fact and issue. The second instance is absence or non-access of husband. So when there is a question of legitimacy of a child, in section 112 of the Indian Evidence Act, provisions are there. What is that provision? If a child is born within 280 days of existence of valid marriage between a man and the wife, or during the existence of marriage, and 200 days after the divorce, and the mother remaining unmarried, then that will be treated as a legitimate child. So in such case, if a question comes, whether a particular child is the legitimate child of the husband of a particular man, evidence may be given to prove that the husband was absent, or he was living in a far off place, he had no access to the wife, so that is inconsistent with the fact and issue. The third instance is survival of the deceased. Survival of the deceased after the date of alleged murder. Suppose X is facing trial for committing the murder of Y on 12 January 2008. But evidence was found that on 31st January 2008 that Y was alive. So in such case, if he was survived that after the date of alleged murder, that will make the fact and issue that is inconsistent with fact and issue. So that is survival of the alleged deceased after the date of the alleged murder. That is admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 11 of the Indian Evidence Act, because that is inconsistent with the fact and issue or relevant facts. Then commission of offence by a third person. So the fourth category is commission of offence by a third person. If a person is facing trial for committing a particular crime, he gives evidence that a third person, another person, has committed the crime, so that is inconsistent with the fact and issue. So infliction of the harm. Sometimes, suppose a person is facing trial for committing murder, but if there is a letter where the deceased has written that she committed suicide. This is a woman that she had prepared a suicidal note before committing suicide. Some years made a note that she voluntarily committed suicide. So that will make the fact that is inconsistent. If that evidence is given, that is inconsistent with the fact and issue. So self-inflicted harm alleged, that is also that is inconsistent with the fact. That is admissible in evidence. So where a lover was charged with murder of a woman whose body was found in a river, the fact that during the week before her death she had attempted to commit suicide and people had saved her. So that is, those facts are also inconsistent with the fact in issue. So now the first part says facts otherwise not otherwise relevant but becomes relevant as they are inconsistent with the fact in issue. Second is that if by themselves or in connection with other facts they make the existence or non-existence of any fact in issue or relevant fact highly probable or improbable. That is also, if suppose a person is facing trial for committing a murder. Suppose evidence is given that there is other facts to show that he was some other person might have committed the crime. That is also to be treated as a non-existence of any fact in issue or relevant facts as highly probable or improbable. In this connection, if you remember, if any of you have seen the movie Andha Kanun, there this alibi and this section 11, you can understand the provisions in section 11. Here in that case, that one Rajinikanth was in the police lockup and or in the jail on that day, he somehow or other escaped from the jail and committed a murder. So that evidence is admissible because it is inconsistent with the fact in issue. Facts, though not otherwise relevant, but are inconsistent with the fact in issue, totally inconsistent. Or there may be, if those facts or in connection with other facts make the existence or non-existence of either existence of the fact, a particular fact is probable, or non-existence of a particular fact as highly improbable. This is section what? The section 11 of the Evidence Act. Now, let us discuss about the provisions in section 12. What section 12 says? In suit for damages, facts tending to enable court to determine amount are relevant. When a suit for damages is filed, suit for damages is filed in tort or for breach of contract. Suppose in a breach of contract, monetary compensation is claimed. So in such case, suppose the evidence may be given to which will enable the court to determine the amount of damages. For an example, X had entered a contract with Y to purchase 5,000 bags of rice. So, but the contract was breached. So thereafter, X purchased the similar quantity of rice from the market in a higher price. So evidence may be given at what was the price when he of a particular bag of rice at the time when the contract was made, and what was the price when he purchased the required rice from the market. So differential price, he can realize that differential price from Y, from the defendant as compensation or damages. So evidence may be given that will enable the court to determine the amount of damages. Similarly, in damages for tort, say for example, in a particular accident, there is an accident. In an accident, that means a cricket player, he sustained injury, his leg was fractured, and for that he became unfit, or he was unfit to play cricket. So he was a state cricket player, he was earning by playing cricket. So evidence may be given that he was a cricket player. Or similarly, a person who was an artist, suppose there was an accident, he sustained an injury on his hand, so he could not do his job. Or so evidence may be given, but to prove the compensation. Compensation, how much, what was his earnings, actually whether he was an artist or whether he was a cricket player, or what, that will enable the court to determine the damages. Similarly, in a compensation, when compensation is claimed in a defamation case, whether the person, the plaintiff, was a man of high repute, that evidence may be tendered so that the court can determine the amount of damages. Section 12 says, in a suit for damages, facts tending to enable to court to determine amount are relevant. In suits in which damages are claimed, any fact which will enable the court to determine the amount of damages which ought to be awarded is relevant. So now it is a very small section, it is very simple section, you can understand it. Now the third section is section 13. Facts relevant when right or custom is in question. What is right? Right means what? A person who is entitled for certain as per law. What? Custom means a usage. Custom and usage has been defined in Hindu Marriage Act or under Hindu law. That what it says, custom and usage are the rules which is followed from time immemorial in a particular family or particular locality. That is for a custom. So what it says, facts relevant when right or custom is in question. When there is a question whether there is a custom, whether a person has a legal right on a particular property or legal right to realize something, or where the question is, or to claim some property, exercise that right, where the question is as to the existence of a right or custom. When a question arises, whether there was a custom, whether there was a right, the following facts are relevant. A and B. Any transaction by which right or custom in question was created, any particular transaction, any transaction when that right or custom in question was created, claimed, modified, reorganized, recognized, asserted or denied, or which was inconsistent with its existence. So that, or B, particular instances in which the right or custom was claimed, recognized or exercised, or in which its exercise was disputed, altered or departed from. So illustration says, suppose there is a question is whether A has a right to a fishery. Right to fishery means what? Catching fish from a particular tank or from a particular river or particular reservoir. So here the question is whether A has a right to fishery. A deed conferring the fishery right on A's ancestor, that is relevant, because that instance, a transaction in which that right was created. A mortgage of the fishery by A's father. Similarly, if A's father has mortgaged that right of fishery to another person, that will prove the existence of a right. That is relevant. Or a subsequent grant of the fishery by A's father, subsequently grant a fishery, that is inconciliable with the mortgage. Particular instance in which A's father exercised the right, or in which the exercise of the right was stopped by A's neighbors, are all relevant. So this is right or custom. When there is a what this is section. So now, what do I mean by custom? Custom means an usage or a rule traditionally followed for a long period. For a long period. A custom is a particular rule which has existed from time immemorial, and it is not opposed to public policy. It must not be immoral and against law. So a custom section, we find the definition of custom in Hindu Succession Act. What it says? 3D. The expression custom and usage signifies any rule which having been continuously and uniformly observed, that is continuously and uniformly observed for a long time, have obtained the force of law. A rule which is uniformly and continuously, there must not be interruption, continuously observed for a long period and has obtained the force of law. Now the law, as it has become a law, force of law, among Hindus in any local area, tribe, community, group or family. Local area, that is a local custom. Community, it is custom, it is a custom of a particular community or a group or a family. So provided that the rule is certain, the rule must be clear, certain and not unreasonable and opposed to public policy. Suppose somebody, there is a question that there is a custom for marrying the brother with the sister. No, that is no immoral. So that is not. But in Odisha, There is a custom that in southern districts of Odisha for marriage of maternal uncle's daughter. That is a custom. So but here custom must not be unreasonable or opposed to public policy and immoral. Further that in the case of a rule applicable only to a family, it has not been discontinued. If it is a family custom, it must not have been discontinued. How? What is essential of a valid custom? You should know. Custom must be ancient, antiquity. That means from time immemorial. What is for a long period? It must be continuous. Continuous means there must not be any interruption. It must not have been abandoned in the meantime. It must be reasonable. There unreasonable custom is not accepted. It must be moral, equitable and accordance with the public policy. So it must not be contrary to justice, equity and public policy. It must be contrary to statutory law. Suppose somebody is but it will not against the law. If he violates the custom, then that the custom will not prevail. So this is called custom. So when the question arises whether there is a particular custom or not, there is a custom or a particular right is not. So that's why that will prove what you will say. Any transaction by which the right or custom is question was. Transaction means what? Any contract or any contract in which this right was created, or any claim has been made that has been followed, and right or custom, the following facts are relevant. So as I told you, now you are clear when there is a question whether there exists a particular custom or what a right. So any transaction by which the right or custom in question was created, claimed, modified, recognized, asserted or denied, or which was inconsistent with its existence, that is, all such evidence are admissible as per the provision of section 13 of the Evidence Act. Similarly, the evidence, particular instance in which the right or custom was claimed, recognized or exercised, or in which its exercise was disputed, asserted or departed, even departed, that custom had been departed from, those are admissible in evidence. Now let us discuss the provisions in section 14 of the Evidence Act. Facts showing existence of state of mind or a body or bodily feeling. What is state of mind? What is the state? In what state a particular person's mind was? What facts showing the existence of a state of mind? State of mind, state of body or bodily feeling. Facts showing the existence of state of mind, body or bodily feeling. So you go through this section, what it says? Facts showing the existence of any state of mind. What are those state of mind that has been provided? Such as intention, that is a state of mind. Knowledge is a state of mind. Good faith, negligence, rashness, ill will or goodwill towards any particular person. So facts showing the existence of state of mind to a particular person, not in general. Suppose X is facing trial for committing a murder. The facts showing that he has a particular intention with, he had an enmity, that is, he had intention, he had the enmity, there was a motive. The motive is relevant, that is as per section 8, that is admissible. But facts showing the existence of any state of mind. State of mind has been stated, has been that means described as such as intention, such as intention, knowledge, good faith, so negligence, rashness, ill will or good will towards any particular person. Ill will prove in a murder to prove the intention, showing the existence of any state of body feeling. Body feeling, in what state a particular person was, body feeling, or when the existence of any such state of mind or body feeling is an issue or relevant. So when facts showing state of mind, body or bodily feeling relevant, when there is an issue, first there is an issue regarding the existence of a state of mind or state of body or body feeling, then that is relevant. So unless there is an issue regarding existence of a particular state of mind, body or bodily feeling, then section 14 will not be. applicable. What it says? Facts showing the existence of state of mind such as intention, knowledge, good faith, rashness, ill will, even state of body or relevant. When the existence of a state of mind or body or a body feeling is in issue or relevant, there is an issue regarding the existence of intention. Suppose there is a issue in a case, in a murder case, there is, or in a crime, there is an issue that there was rashness. You caused the accident due to this negligent. So negligent is a issue there. So in such case, back showing that he was negligent, that is admissible in evidence. Explanation: a fact relevant as showing the existence of a relevant state of mind must show that the state of mind exists not generally. State of mind exists not generally. State of mind exists in relation to a particular person for which that person is facing a trial. But in general, state of mind is not relevant. But in reference to the particular matter in question, suppose that is the dispute. So now that particular matter in question, that is relevant. But where upon the trial of a person, the only exception is there, when on a trial of a person, the previous commission of an accused of an offence is relevant within the meaning of this section. Previously, the accused has committed a theft. For that, he is liable for enhanced punishment. Then the previous conviction of such person shall also be a relevant fact. But where upon the trial of a person accused of an offence, the previous commission by the accused of the offence is relevant within the meaning of this section, then the previous conviction of such person shall also be relevant. This section 14 will find number of illustrations. A number of illustrations are there because always facts showing the existence of state of mind, body, state of body, bodily feeling are relevant when such the existence of such state of mind, body, bodily feeling is an issue. Unless it is an issue in that case, the facts showing the existence of state of mind, body or bodily feeling are not relevant. But that must be with reference to particular transaction, not in general. Suppose X is facing trial for committing theft on a particular date or on a particular date at a particular place. Evidence may not be given to prove that X had committed theft at other places, because that is, but when previous conviction for section under section 75 IPC, there is a provision for enhanced punishment for committing theft for the second time, then that becomes relevant. Previous conviction becomes relevant when that is relevant in that case. So that is, a person is X has committed, S is facing trial for committing cheating. The evidence may not be given that he had committed similar offences, he had faced trial for similar offences of cheating. From that, no inference can be drawn that he had committed the offence of cheating in the particular case. So always evidence may be given only to prove regarding to that particular transaction, he had a particular state of mind or particular body. State of body means in what condition he was. Body, state of body condition. Body condition, suppose whether a particular type of poison has been administered to the deceased. If deceased had made complaint that regarding the symptoms of the poison, that is the fact showing the existence of state of body or bodily feeling, that becomes relevant as per the provisions of section this 14 of the Evidence Act. In illustration, you will go say, A is accused of receiving stolen goods knowing them to be stolen. A is facing trial. So it is proved that he was in possession of a particular stolen article. That is fact showing this. The fact that at the same time he was in possession of many other stolen articles is relevant as tending to show that he knew each and all of the articles of which he was in possession to be stolen. That is not state of mind, back showing that the state of mind that he was aware, intentionally he has received the stolen property. A is accused of fraudulently delivering to another person a counterfeit coin, while at the time when he delivered, he knew it to be counterfeit. The fact that at the time of its delivery, A was possessed of a number of pieces of counterfeit coin, knowing them a counterfeit is relevant. That is state of mind. So that will prove the particular case. A's used B for damage done by a dog of B's, which B knew to be ferocious. The fact that the dog had previously bitten X, Y, and Z, and that they had made complaint to B are relevant under this provision. The question is whether A, the acceptor of a bill of exchange, knew that the name of the payee was fictitious. The fact that A had accepted other bills drawn in the same manner before they could have been transmitted to him by the payee, if the payee had been a real person, is relevant, as shown that A knew that the payee was a fictitious. Number of examples are there. You please go through it and try to make yourself understand the provisions. So what I told you, body or bodily feeling, sometimes in the condition of one's body. State of body means condition of one's body or his bodily feeling may help a lot in the finding the truth. Thus, where it is alleged that A was murdered for administering poison to him, his statement regarding his condition and bodily feeling all are required, all will help the court to come to a conclusion. So now this is fact showing. Now section 15. Section 15, what it says? Facts bearing on question whether act was accidental or intentional. When there is an issue whether a particular act was accidental or intentional. Section 15 says, what it says? Facts bearing on question whether act was accidental or incident, it reads as follows. What it says? Where there is a question whether an act was accidental or intentional or done with a particular knowledge or intention. That particular act was accidental or intentional, or it was done with a particular knowledge or intention. The fact that such act formed part of a series of similar occurrences, in each of which the person doing the act was concerned, is relevant. The best example illustration will say, suppose A is accused of burning down his house in order to obtain money from the insurance company. There is an allegation. A has filed a case for getting money, for realization of money from the insurance company for burning of his house. The fact that A had previously made insurance of his other houses and he had also claimed the claim insurance money in respect of those houses, those are relevant because that will show that that was intention. The burning of the house was not accidental. Similarly, A is employed to receive money from debtors B. If it is the duty of A is employed by B to receive money from others. Suppose in the ledger that A has made a false entry making the payment of less amount and he had appropriated some amount. So the fact that A had made similar entries in respect of other persons, those are relevant because that will prove that the act was not accidental. There may be accidental slip so that there may be accidental mistake in the ledger, entry in the ledger, but the B had made similar mistakes, similar entries showing less amount in the account kept by him. That will prove that his action was intentional. That was not accidental. A is accused of fraudulently delivering to B a counterfeit rupee. The question is whether the delivery of the rupee was accidental. The fact that soon before or soon after the delivery to B, A delivered counterfeit coin rupees to C, D, E, all are relevant because that will prove his act was not accidental, but it was intentional. This is section 15. The other section, that is section 16. What it says? Existence of course of business where relevant. When relevant? When there is a question whether a particular act was done, the existence of any course of business according to which naturally would have been done is a relevant fact. Suppose a particular act was done. If it is the existence of any course of business in which that act was usually done, that becomes relevant. The illustration will make you clear that whether a particular letter has been dispatched. The fact that the letter was put in the letter box and other letters had been sent to that post office, and from that particular post office, so all letters had been dispatched. That will show that particular letter had been dispatched. The question is whether a particular letter was dispatched. The fact that it was the ordinary course of business for all letters put in a certain place to be carried to the post, and that particular letter was put in that place are relevant. That particular letter was also put in the letter box. All those letters were dispatched. So that the fact showing that a particular dispatch was in the ordinary course of business of the post office, that is relevant. The question is whether a particular letter reached a similar the facts that it was posted in the course and was not returned from the dead letter office. All are relevant facts, because that will prove the existence of course of business when relevant. When it is relevant, when there is a question whether a particular act was done, whether a particular done, if any course of business during that act is done, then that course of business is, evidence may be given that the particular act was done in the course of business, that is relevant as per the provisions of section 16. As far as we tried to just make you aware of the provisions in Evidence Act from the sections, section 11 to section 16. Let us conclude. If anybody has any doubt, it's okay. Let us conclude our sessions. Thank you all. କେତେ ପିଲା ଥିଲା?